I'm Dr. Eggman.
So we have our Easter decorations here, and we have not one, but 3 of them. And we are going to be taking each of them and making them into a neat little Sonic egg-shaped character. Let's go ahead and get these things prepped and ready, and without further ado, here we go. Starting with the main character, I'm building up enough blue paint on the base to get a nice solid coat. And I really like this blue color. I think it works perfect for Sonic. Once the base is done, I'm going for a classic look. So I sketch out his face using a white colored pencil, using a kneaded eraser to erase things as I go along. Once our sketch is done, it's time to start filling in the color. I start with the whites of his eyes and his gloves, and just fill in one color at a time. It's going to take several coats for the color to build up and be a good solid color. Sonic's shoes were actually a problem area for me. For some reason, the red paint I was using was coming out very liquidy and not very solid, so I wasn't getting opaque no matter how many times I put down layers. As you can see on screen, it's pretty awful. Yeah, that's not gonna work. So, after I had struggled with it for a while, you can see how sloppy and big the feet look. I just decided to take acetone and wipe it all away so that I could start again. I used acetone and cotton wipes to wipe away the paint and get it back down to the black board. I also sanded it down as needed because the acetone was making the paint very lumpy. I was a little afraid when I went to put the blue paint back over that it would be lumpy and you could see where I had wiped things away and it would be just a gross little seam there, but it wasn't. It actually went on very smooth. And you couldn't tell that there was any mishap that happened. So here I am doing things correctly. I put down the white base and I put the red on top of that white once it had dried, and you can already see how much better it looks. The red is still a little runny. Again, for some reason the red paint is just, I don't know, it's just not very opaque with the first layer where all the other colors seem to be just fine. The red was giving me a lot of problems. I fine-tuned the red and white on his shoes and moved down to his gray soles. Next, I used the same gray to shade in his gloves and eyes, and I really liked how this made him pop. It's such a small detail, but it really does add to the image. Even though these eggs hang on a door or a wall, I wanted to do a complete front and back. So I paint the egg the base color and use the darker blue to draw out Sonic's spines. It's not complex, it's just a simple little design, but I think it really adds to the overall detail of the project. once we're done with the back, it's time to do the line art, and I am using a black Posca paint pen. And with that, Sonic is done. He looks so good. I am so happy with how he turned out. He's absolutely the cutest little thing I've ever seen. Up next is Tails. I went ahead and painted the egg and sketched him out. And just like with the red, the yellow was giving me a bit of a problem too, where it wouldn't go down opaque even though it was on white. It seemed very spotty in some places, and I did my best to give it a nice even coat everywhere. And also you can see that the sketch is kind of bleeding out everywhere. And I didn't really think this would be a problem. I didn't use a yellow colored pencil because I thought that I wouldn't be able to see it on the white base. It also didn't help that the sketch I made was with a watercolor pencil instead of a regular colored pencil. Always make sure which pencils you're using when you're doing a project like this. So all of the paint I was using was making the watercolor bleed everywhere, and I was getting that awful look. I felt like I really wasn't getting anywhere with Tails because this sketch and then all the yellow and everything just wasn't looking right. There was off color somewhere, there was yellow in his chest, and I couldn't get any of the white opaque, I couldn't get the yellow opaque. Everything seemed like it was just falling apart. And then this happened. I'm just touching him up, putting more layers of yellow on, when I noticed that there's a little hair on his glove, so I just do what anybody would do and wipe it away, and oh, kidding me. So I try to wipe it again and realize that paint gets on things, so I take a little wipe and some acetone and boom! It's gone, it's fixed, it's done. No, it's not. I just keep going and going and going. Why? Oh my god. But I fixed it. You may notice that Tails looks a little different than he did in the beginning. I decided that it was just going to be a catastrophe, so I fixed his face and his stomach piece off camera just to save time, and I actually got it opaque. I sat around for hours just painting it. And just like with Sonic, we're going in and adding some shading to his eyes, his gloves, all that. And then it's time for the back. We put down our base layer of paint, and I go in with a white Posca paint pen and sketch out the white tufts of fur that are at the ends of his tails. Once that's done, I go in and fill in the color. And finally, we are ready for the beautiful line art. And the very last thing we need to do for Tails is make his ears and his bangs. I take a thin piece of craft foam and sketch out the ears. Once I have the yellow pieces cut out, I make identical shapes in white craft foam for the inside of his ears, and I just shave those down until they're the right size. My first plan was to attach the ears to the back of his head just above his tails, but I didn't leave enough room for that. So after a bit of cutting and trimming and thinking about what to do, I decided that I should put them on the edge of the egg and it would look a lot better. I used Gorilla Glue to attach them to the edge and let them dry. Next up, we have to do his bangs. I just took longer strips of the craft foam, sketched out the basic shape of the bangs, and then cut them all down to shape, trying to smooth them out the best I could. After that, I just Gorilla Glue all the bangs together, throw some line art on it, and bam! We have our finished Tails. He looks so cute. And finally, we have the man himself. When I first sketched out Eggman, I wasn't planning on doing any type of 3D effects with the foam, but after I decided that it would look awkward with his mustache just kind of squished onto the image, I figured I should go out and buy some, and it actually worked out because I could use it on Tails' bangs and ears as well. I also wanted to stick with a classic Robotnik design, since he is probably the most round and the simplest of shapes. He wasn't going to be too hard to paint, and he was still going to look pretty good. The classic is probably my favorite of all the Sonic designs. I've been a fan of Sonic since I was in 4th grade, and I started playing Sonic Adventure and Sonic Adventure 2 on my GameCube. I kind of got out of my Sonic phase in 8th grade, but I still kept all my games and I still play them from time to time. It's always fun to go back and revisit things that you were a fan of. When the movie was announced, I started binge watching Sonic X and all that other stuff before the movie came out, just to hype myself back up for it. I used the same red paint I did on Sonic's shoes on Eggman's coat, but even with the white base this time the red was still starting to act up with me. I don't know what was happening. I also somehow got a little bit of black paint stuck in the paintbrush when I went back over the red, so it has some dark spots. So I decided I would just mix up the red with an orange and a pink and kind of get a little bit lighter of a red, but still have some opacity from other colors, hoping that that would save it from whatever was happening to it. I think this red looks so much better. It has a more pastel look to it, and it's just not as harsh as the original red was. And now it is time for the line art. I also thought that Eggman's back was so simple that I really didn't need to include it in the video, so I hope you don't mind about that. After that, it's time to make his mustache. I take a piece of tracing paper and put it over his face, that way I can get a good measurement of how big to make his mustache. I wanted to keep it big and simple, that way it was pretty recognizable to the character and stood out as his main component. Once I have it drawn out, I place the image on a piece of craft foam and cut it out. Once I determine that it's going to be a pretty good shape, I go ahead and do the other side. I use an X-Acto knife to cut around the shape and get an exact copy. Once I get the mustache pieces made, I decide that I'll just use a spare piece of craft foam to make the nose. That way it can go on top and be part of the 3D effects, and not look so awkward as like I just cut out the pieces around the nose. I tape the two mustache pieces together. That way they'll glue on easy. I'm also using Gorilla Glue again to attach the mustache. While that's drying, I paint the nose pink, add some line art to it and the mustache, and voila, we are finally finished with our third egg. And he looks dashing. I absolutely love this. He is my favorite out of the three. I am so happy with how all three of them came out. They just look so cool. I'm definitely going to hang them up even when it's not Easter. And there you have it. The eggs are done, and I painted them. And they look really good. I know this video isn't coming out on Easter, because I'm bad at editing videos, because I don't know how to edit videos. But, yeah, subscribe, like, share. I plan on making more videos soon, maybe not completely Sonic related, but art related and stuff like that. You can see me craft things and draw things maybe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter. I post there too. You can see more content, but be sure to hit that bell, subscribe, and see you later.